Teresa Morales scored 199 points on Family Feud Fast Money, 1 point short of winning $20,000 for her 7-year-old son's chemotherapy treatment. When Steve Harvey announced the number, Teresa's knees gave out and she slid down the side of the podium to the floor. Not from heartbreak, from 8 months of carrying a secret alone, in the dark on 2 hours of sleep a night, and having nowhere left to fall except right there on that stage. It was a Thursday afternoon in October 2021 at Trilith Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. The audience was warm, the lights were bright, and Teresa Morales from San Antonio, Texas, had been smiling since she walked in. She was small, energetic, wearing a yellow blazer she had borrowed from her sister because she wanted to look happy on television. She had done her hair that morning with her son Marco watching from the bathroom doorway. He had handed her the brush. He was wearing his dinosaur pajamas and one of his eyes was still closed from sleep. And he had said, "Mama, you look like a star." She had turned away from the mirror so he wouldn't see her face. She had been awake since 3 a.m. But nobody in that studio knew what Teresa Morales was carrying that afternoon. The game moved fast. Teresa's family was loud and funny and affectionate, elbowing each other at the podium, celebrating each right answer like it was the last one they were ever going to get. Steve loved them immediately. You could see it in the way he leaned into their energy, playing with them, pausing his own jokes to let their laughter fill the room. Teresa played beautifully. She was sharp, fast, and when she hugged Steve after a good answer, she pressed her eyes closed for just a second longer than a contestant usually does. She was carrying something. 8 months before that taping, on a February morning in San Antonio, Teresa had taken Marco to Children's Hospital for what the pediatrician thought was a persistent chest infection. The doctor who ordered the scan was soft-spoken and used careful words, but the words still meant the same thing. Marco had a malignant tumor pressing against his right lung. He was 6 years old. The treatment plan required 4 rounds of chemotherapy, a possible surgical intervention, and an immunotherapy protocol that Teresa's insurance carrier, MedPath Solutions, classified in their rejection letter as not standard of care for this patient profile. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Teresa read it at the kitchen table while Marco slept in the next room. She appealed the decision. She filled out 47 pages of forms, gathered 3 letters from Marco's oncologist, and submitted everything within the required window. The second letter from MedPath arrived 12 days later, appeal denied. She hired a patient advocate named Darnell, who had spent 20 years fighting insurance companies and who told her with genuine regret that her case was an uphill battle. He submitted a third appeal with supporting research from a pediatric oncology journal. Denied. The specific language treatment profile does not meet medical necessity threshold under current subscriber policy. Meanwhile, Marco's treatment could not wait. Teresa withdrew $4,200 from a savings account she had been building since Marco was born. She asked her mother for $800. She sold the television from her living room and the extra car in the driveway. She started a GoFundMe that raised $3,100 over 3 weeks. She took a second job cleaning an office building 3 nights a week, getting home at 1:30 in the morning, setting her alarm for 5:15, driving Marco to the hospital for his morning appointments, then driving herself to her day job at a logistics company where nobody knew she was running on fumes. "I'm fine," she told her sister when her sister asked if she was sleeping. "I'm just excited about the show." She applied to Family Feud because Marco had asked to watch the show with her one night when he was too tired from the treatment to sleep, and he had laughed for the first time in 2 weeks. She applied because the $20,000 prize would cover exactly what she had calculated as the remaining gap in Marco's treatment fund. She applied because she had run out of other ideas and she had decided she was going to try every single one. And then she had scored 199. The audience thought the worst was over when Teresa stood up from the floor. They were wrong. Steve Harvey froze mid-step when he saw her go down. His smile disappeared. He placed his cards slowly on the podium and walked toward her in the way a person walks when they are trying not to alarm someone while moving as quickly as possible. 2 crew members were already beside her. Steve knelt down on the stage floor, not caring about his suit, and put his hand on her arm. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey, look at me." Teresa looked up at him. Her eyes were dry. She had been out of tears for months. "What's going on?" he said. She shook her head. "I'm okay. You scored 199 on my show and your legs gave out. You are not okay. Talk to me." The room held its breath. Not the usual game show pause. A different kind of silence entirely. Teresa looked at him for 3 full seconds, and then she told him. "Not everything. The most important part, Marco. The tumor. The treatment. The $19 in her checking account at that exact moment." Steve Harvey pressed his handkerchief to his face. He stood up and walked a few paces with his back to the cameras, and when he turned back around, his eyes were red. "Stop everything," he said to the room. "We are stopping the game." A stage manager moved toward him. Steve held up his hand once and the stage manager stopped. "I need everybody to listen to me right now," Steve said. He wasn't performing. His voice was lower than his host voice, lower than his comedy voice. This was just a man talking. "Because this has never happened in the 45-year history of this show, and I need to do something right now that has nothing to do with the game." He looked at Teresa. "Let me tell you something. In 1986, I was living in my car. A 1976 Ford Tempo parked in Cleveland, Ohio in January. I had nothing. No job, no address, no plan. What I had was a sick fear that I was going to be nothing for the rest of my life. And I didn't know how to make it stop. And then a woman, a stranger at a gas station, walked up to me while I was eating a bag of chips that I found in my back seat, and she handed me a $20 bill. She didn't ask me anything, she just handed it to me and walked away." He paused. "Because of that $20 I ate that week. Because I ate that week, I kept going. Because I kept going, I'm standing here right now. I was Teresa, 35 years ago. I was her." He looked directly at the camera. "And I want to talk to everyone watching at home right now. Because Teresa is not alone. There are 10,000 Teresas out there right now sitting in hospital waiting rooms and kitchen floors and parking lots, carrying something nobody else can see. And they need to know it is not the end." But Steve wasn't done. He pulled out his phone. On camera, during the taping, he called his business manager Steven Greenberg and put the call on speaker so the audience could hear. He said 4 sentences, "Steven. Family Feud stage. I need $20,000 wired to a woman named Teresa Morales tonight, and I need you to connect her with the pediatric oncology fund we set up in 2018. The audience erupted. Teresa covered her mouth with both hands. He wasn't finished. He looked at the competing family. The Washingtons from Detroit who had stood through every second of this without saying a word. The Washington family's eldest daughter, a woman named Kezia, walked across the stage without being asked. She put her arms around Teresa. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Steve watched this, and for the first time in the entire episode, he had to turn away from the cameras. Both families are walking out of here with the full prize today, he said when he turned back. Because today the game doesn't matter. Today the only thing that matters is this woman right here. When the episode aired 3 weeks later, the clip of Steve kneeling on the stage floor and saying, "You scored 199 on my show and your legs gave out, you are not okay," was viewed 310 million times in 14 days. The hashtag 199 for Marco trended globally for 72 hours. By the time the episode finished airing, a foundation page set up in Marco's name had received $1.4 million in donations from 61 countries. Marco Morales completed his 4th round of chemotherapy 11 weeks after the taping. His oncologist used the word remarkable. At his 6th-month scan, the tumor had reduced in size by 78%. By the following spring, Marco was back in school. 3 months after the taping, Teresa received a handwritten note from Steve Harvey. It said, "I met you on a stage, but I've known you my whole life. Keep going." A year later, the Teresa Morales Foundation, built on her words from that day, "I'm not stopping, I'm just tired," launched its first program providing emergency medical grants to single parents in medical crises. In its first year, the foundation helped 340 families across the United States. To date, it has raised $8.2 million. Today, Marco Morales is 10 years old. He still watches Family Feud. He still tells his mother she looks like a star. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to know that the one point you didn't get is not the end of your story. Do you know a parent carrying something invisible right now? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more moments that restore your faith in humanity.